What happened? What's up, everybody? What did I do?
Oh, it was like, okay, go. I wasn't ready.
Oh yeah, that's how that goes. You just click the button and then
I know, but I wasn't ready.
It starts recording. That's kind of a thing.
Okay, let me get my blanket.
Are you cold?
I'm a little chilly.
It's weird out.
Oh, well, I took a shower and my hair's all wet and it's like gloomy out a little bit.
Yeah, it's super gloomy and we were kind of expecting some cool like weather to come through. And
I probably need to put my microphone by my face.
That's usually a good start. Man,
I wasn't ready. Okay.
There you go. Okay. Now,
all right.
There we go. Oh boy.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right.
We've only done this like 13 times.
I know.
We'll have it figured out. By the time we're not doing this anymore, we'll have it figured out.
There'll be something else to do instead.
Right. So you started me on a rabbit hole like, I don't know, like 3 episodes ago, whatever it was.
Doing what?
Well, you brought up like federal taxing and we were in the middle of a conversation. I don't recall what it was.
Okay.
It was probably some conspiracy thing or something. I don't know.
Probably.
And then you brought up this whole idea of federal taxes.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I think that I just didn't realize it wasn't always a thing.
Right.
Like I just always thought I thought George Washington was like, give me your money.
Give me your money.
But I didn't know that wasn't like that.
Yeah, that was Uncle Sam, actually.
Yeah. Oh, Uncle Sam.
Yeah. Right. So this thing has kind of been a thing for me for a long time. Hey, what's up, guys? How are you? Tiffany and Gina. So this thing has kind of been something that I've looked into with not much seriousness for a long time. It's not a new thing for me.
You read a lot too. Well, you read a lot of really boring things like the constitutional books and things
boring.
on like.
These things are not boring.
I know.
They're not. They're entertaining and they're good for people to know.
Read it, but I like hearing it from you. I like when you give me the Cliff Notes, which is why this is perfect for today.
Right. So, yeah, they're not boring. They're just. There are some yes, I understand your point. Like it's not exciting. Like it's not Star Wars, right?
Cliff
like,
Notes of it. Yeah.
Right. But there are some things that people need to understand in all of this. And there are some things that I still don't know the answers to because nobody does. I mean, there's really are you talking about like historically you don't know the answers to? Well,
I mean, but if you think about it, do we really know anything now?
No. And that's part of why history is one of those things. It's just like statistics. You can make the history fit whatever your agenda. Right. If you need a statistic to say that this certain thing does these certain things, you can make the numbers work. Right. Mm-hmm. So history is similar in that aspect. And it's no different than what's about to happen right now. I'm clearly going to have a bias in this whole concept. However, the proof is in the pudding. These things have worked before and they will work again in different circumstances, but you have to understand all of it in its context.
You're talking about taxes?
Yes.
Okay.
Right. So
you're talking about federal taxation. Yeah,
100%. So one of the crazy things that people you hear all the time is taxation is theft. And it's one of the pages I follow that is huge. They push that mindset, right? Well, taxation is theft. I mean, if you think about it, it's no different for the federal government to take your money and have 2 options. 1, you pay them, or 2, you go to jail.
Right.
Okay. It's no different than a robber coming up to you and putting a gun to your head and say, give me your wallet.
Or else I'll kill you.
Or I'll kill you.
Yeah.
It's no different. It's literally no different.
Yeah.
It's not, because you have a penalty in either way.
And like, if we're just born here, we don't really have a choice.
There's no choice.
I mean, I'm glad I'm born here. Don't get me wrong.
We're born into a system.
Glad, but.
Right. So we're born into a system that we really don't have a whole lot to say. You could try to make changes if you choose to write your governors or you run for office or whatever. But the reality is, this is it. This is what we're stuck with.
Yeah.
Right. The only difference would be that in that scenario, the robber would give you like a loaf of bread. I'm going to take your wallet. Here's your loaf of bread. Right. So you're getting something in exchange. So that's how they remove the idea that taxation is theft, because you're getting something in return. Right?
Some people get more than others.
Some get more than others. So you're getting something in return by protection from the military, right? There's codes, there's laws. Those are all things that we get in return for our federal taxes.
Right. And then there's federal programs and things.
That's the exchange system that they have worked out. Right.
Right. But you don't get to determine like where your money goes to and what you get in return.
No.
I think that's the part that without getting into it as much as you do, like, I think that's where my thing is. It's like, well, we don't know where our money's going. Like, we don't have a choice in where it's going.
Right. Yeah. You don't pick where it goes.
Right.
Although there is a guy who I want to say it was like in 2018 that just won a federal court appeal to pay federal taxes because he didn't believe in one portion of what the government was funding. And because of that, he actually ended up winning because it's no taxation without representation. And he doesn't feel he was being properly represented. So that's a whole nother different aspect. If I don't like
horses and the government's giving my tax money to horse companies, that's kind of what he was doing. And so like you go and you fight and say, well, I'm not.
Right. And that's what he did. But and he actually won.
I like horses.
Oh God, that's a slippery slope. So anyway, I'm going to get into a little bit of the history of it. I'm going to get into where the taxation comes from, and I'm going to get into some of our options. And if you guys have any questions at any point, please put them on there. I will do my best to answer them. If I don't know, I will find out. This is going to be somewhat dry and boring for a lot of you. For some of you, this is like, I love this stuff. This to me is absolutely exciting because it ties in not only our history, but some of the Constitution, some of the current days that are going on politically. And it also looks into the future a little bit. So I love this.
I mean, side note, this is absolutely nothing that I would do research on or spend hours doing, but you did call me in as your secretary to type while you dictated some stuff.
Some notes.
So the little bits that I did listen to, I didn't know. And it was very interesting.
Yeah.
Without knowing all the details of it, like it was a lot of new information that I didn't realize. So I'm kind of interested to see like what else you came up with since that happened.
So there's the history of it, right? So initially all of the income for the federal government was all from tariffs. They collected all their money from whether it was imported goods, whiskey, tobacco. They even included glass windows because we weren't manufacturing them here yet. Some of those things were being taxed.
I guess they don't think about days before glass windows were made in the U.S.
Right. So a lot of the stuff that was being imported was being taxed, which is where they were receiving their money from for the most part initially.
But most goods then were being, like a lot of goods were being brought in then.
Yeah. Well, almost everything. We didn't have anything here. There was no infrastructure, no factories, anything like that. And
so quite a bit.
There's a lot coming in. So that's where all the tariffs, all that money was going towards the federal government in order to continue funding it. The money generally was collected at a state level, from polls and property tax. So like when you go to vote, that's where they collect your taxes.
Wait, but if you couldn't, like, what if you were poor and you couldn't pay to vote? Then you just didn't get a vote?
Well, that was part of
poor people didn't have a choice.
There were some modifications that went through. It wasn't necessarily that you paid to vote. It was you collected at the same time. There were probably, I would imagine, again, this is all the history stuff that you can go look into it, whether you actually paid to vote or you like well,
it's like if you pay your property taxes, then we'll let you vote. But if you don't pay them, then you don't have that right.
Did that happen? I'm sure it did. But were they necessarily tied it technically where it should have been? No.
Right.
So, but the states were collecting on an individual level, right?
For
the states themselves. Yeah, for themselves. So it was two completely separate things.
Okay.
Prior to the 16th Amendment coming in, at its highest points, the tariffs had equaled up to like 95% of the federal income.
So that paid, okay.
It paid majority of everything the federal government was doing.
That's a lot. 95% is a lot.
Right. That was as of 1865. Right. So in 1861, they introduced a 3% flat tax on all income over $800.
Okay.
So if you made over $800, you got 3% flat tax. That was everybody.
Okay. It didn't matter if you made 80,000.
Yeah.
Or you made 850.
Didn't matter.
Okay.
Yeah.
Flat tax.
Right. In 1872, the flat tax was modified to a gradual tax. So then it went from where everyone had that one rate, right, to now they've adjusted it based on the income. So there were tiers. Right.
They've talked about this for like nowadays, right?
Flat tax is a nowadays option.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's something we'll go back to when I'll get to towards the end.
Okay.
The flat tax then and now they're similar in the fact that they apply to a broad spectrum of people, but they're different in how they apply because clearly our economy is way more complicated now than it was in the 1800s.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Then they started in 1890. In 1894, the high tariff bill went to 2% tax on income over 4,000. And it was struck down by the Supreme Court immediately. It basically within a 30-day period, the Supreme Court said, nope, it's not fair to tax people because they're successful. So, right. That was in 1894.
Okay.
And so gone with it, back to the flat tax with the gradual rate.
Got it. Okay.
Right.
But so with the gradual rate, people that were more successful and did make more money, they did pay a higher tax rate than the flat tax because except for it was on a gradual system. So it wasn't as extreme.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So if it would go from like, let's say $1,000, right? You pay that flat rate at 3%. And then if you it'd take you to like 2,000 to get to 3.5%.
Right.
Right. Rather than just an all-inclusive 2% at a certain level.
Right.
Right. So they got rid of that. Supreme Court said, no way. Well, then in 1909, we have this beautiful thing that we call the 16th Amendment. The 16th Amendment it's an interesting story to it, how it all came about. But anyway, in 1909 was when it actually first was introduced. It didn't get ratified until 1913. But what's funny about it is when all this was going on, there were two sides, just like we have today. There were multiple parties back then that actually were involved. There's Republican and Democrats, and then there was the Southern Democrats were more extreme of them, and then the conservatives were more extreme, and then the Whig Party and the Populist Party. There's way more than two parties involved. But there were two sides of the story. So they argued about what was right, what was wrong in the 16th Amendment. Well, the Conservative Party thought they were going to pull a fast one. It didn't work.
Okay.
They totally screwed themselves because what they thought was we're going to draft this bill similar to what the Democrat Party wants. They put it together, and when they wrote it out, they thought that it would get through Congress, which they needed 2/3 vote. They thought that would happen, but what they didn't think was going to happen was that the vote of the state would pass at a 3/4 vote. So they thought the states were going to be like, no way, we don't need the federal, no way. Well,
keep it separate. Yeah.
Yeah. So it turns out they got 3/4 vote
from the states.
So the Conservative Party was trying to avoid tax altogether. But they thought that if they just got this pushed through and they just get through the voting process, they could get rid of it and it'll never be a topic again. Right. It'll fail. We'll move on about our lives. Let's go.
And be done.
Be done. And that's not what happened. But
okay.
The problem with that is the fraudulent part of the 16th Amendment. And this is where the 16th Amendment has been controversial for years. You can go back to Supreme Court rulings all the way dating back to the mid to late 1900s. There are Supreme Court cases after Supreme Court case about whether it's fraudulent or not. And there's so much information about the 16th Amendment, and we still argue about it up to this point, whether it's real or not.
Okay.
So,
who argues about it?
Well,
like people that want it gone.
People that want it gone, typically.
Yeah.
Even people that want it to exist, they're fighting for it to stay. Right. You remember Ross Perot?
Yes.
He didn't necessarily call out the 16th Amendment, but he would always abolish the IRS. Right. Mm-hmm. That was his thing. Well, that's what he means. He's fighting the 16th Amendment.
Got it.
Right. And so with this, this whole idea. So in order to have an amendment to the Constitution, Congress has to pass the bill with a 2/3 majority, and then the states have to ratify it by a 75% majority.
So many numbers. Okay,
right.
I got it.
So 2/3 of Congress and 3/4 of the states.
Right.
Okay.
Got it.
All right. So at the time, there were, I'm trying to, the Secretary of State, his name is Philander Knox.
Philander
Knox. The ratification came after only 42 of the 48 states had been submitted. Now, to get the 3/4 vote back in that day, you would have had to have had 36 votes for the amendment.
And they had 42.
They had 42 turn their votes in.
Okay.
Right. There were 4 states of those initial 42 that turned them in that turned it down. Utah, Connecticut, Rhode Island, New Hampshire voted against it.
Okay.
Okay. So of the 42, they have 38. So they passed. Ratification's done. That's it.
Okay.
In the program.
So what's the problem?
That's it. That's what they ran on. And that's what this Knox guy said. That's it. We have 38. We only need 36. Let's move on.
So it doesn't matter what everybody else
16th
votes.
Amendment now in effect. And from that day forward, in 1913, we have the 16th Amendment. However, this is where the problem comes in.
Okay. 16th Amendment is like federal
Federal
income?
income tax.
Okay.
Huh?
Just making sure.
Right. All right. So I'm going to use my notes to read through some of this because this gets really complicated in the constitutional side of things. There are some things that went wrong in this whole process of the ratification of the 16th Amendment. Number one, the Kentucky legislature violated 2 portions of the ratification process. It changed the wording of the amendment, and it conducted its votes prior to the governor authorizing the legislature to vote. Both of them are unconstitutional.
How did they just change the words?
Yeah. So what the states would do is they would take, and this is something that happens in today's lawmaking process. For example, the bill that just passed with the stimulus package, the relief package, right?
I think it's the CARE Act.
So the House will write the bill, and then they say, "This is our bill. It's passed." Then it gets sent to Congress, the Senate, and the Senate then has the ability to edit or modify it and then vote.
Okay.
And then it gets submitted back. So they edit what is being said in the bill. So they remove things, they add things, they change the language, whatever. That's normal practice. However, this is not normal practice. This is amending the Constitution. And it's from the state to the federal level, not federal to federal level. Right?
Okay.
So the states would go in and the states would change the wording so that they agreed to the wording, whatever the new wording was. Okay. So when they changed it, then they resubmitted that. Okay. Not allowed. That's not the way the ratification process works.
They just should present it this way the federal.
Yeah. If the federal government says A, B, C, D, E, you have to return it and authorized as A, B, C, D, E.
Okay.
Right.
Which makes sense.
Right. So there's that. So there's one problem. So now if you remove that vote, you're down to 37. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Then on top of that, because Kentucky screwed up and Kentucky realized it screwed up after the fact, they submitted 2 votes. So not only did they submit the vote initially, which was incorrect according to the Constitution.
And they voted yes.
They voted yes the first time. Okay. So it changed the wording to the amendment, right? And then voted yes.
Yes.
Which doesn't count because it's not the original wording. Right.
It shouldn't. Right.
Right. So then they voted no once the Kentucky legislature heard the amendment in its entirety from the governor and the process was voted. The process actually happened properly. Right.
So then they voted no.
Right. Then they voted no.
Okay.
Right. So then if the second vote should have counted because it actually followed the process. So technically they voted no. The first vote shouldn't have counted.
So what did they do? Not count either. They counted the first one.
They counted the first vote because Knox was appointed by the current president who wanted this to go through.
Oh,
and they wanted it to go through before the next president was elected.
Okay.
Okay, so then you go to Oklahoma. Oklahoma changed the word in the amendment, and it voted on the new wording and never submitted a vote for the original wording. Just like Kentucky.
Okay.
Right? Except they never submitted the second vote. So their vote technically doesn't count because what happened when they send it back in, they send it back in with their own wording. Right? So same thing. So those are 2 votes.
So do they have these documents like from each one of the states?
Yes.
Like you can go into like archives and find them?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay. So then we get into these other ones. This one is where the states are violating their own constitution. Tennessee violated its own state constitution 2 different ways. One, when the amendment was received by the Tennessee legislature, it was past the date for the current elected officials to vote on it. The vote was required to wait until the newly elected officials were voted in. Okay. Also, the state requires what they call a cooling off period, which required the amendment to be heard in 3 different sessions. Okay. So when they call these people into session, right. So when they call these things into session, they last for a certain period of time and then they start over and it's a new session. So it had to be held in 3 consecutive sessions. That didn't happen. It was heard once in the entire process. Mm-hmm. So they violated their own state constitution.
Does this part only happen because there was a change in elected officials?
No.
Or do they all had to do 3 different sessions technically?
Yeah. So, right. Okay. So it would have been 3 sessions. These states had to do their 3 sessions, right? So
so with these elected officials,
right? The problem they wouldn't have been able to make a second session with the elected officials, which is why they had to wait. But the initial group of people that were already in office voted. But that 100% is not the way it's supposed to happen because they couldn't complete all 3 sessions with the elected officials in office. They had to wait until that next elected group came through.
Got it. To do 3 sessions, even though they didn't.
And they never did it.
Okay.
It never happened. Okay. So that was Tennessee's violations, right? Okay.
Good old.
Now, they're not alone. There are 13 other states that did the exact same thing Tennessee did. The Mississippi, Ohio, Arkansas, Minnesota, New Mexico, West Virginia, Indiana, Nevada, North Carolina, North Dakota, Colorado, Illinois. All of them. Same thing.
Didn't do 3 sessions.
Didn't do 3 sessions. Didn't follow their own state constitution.
Okay.
Right? Okay. So if you take all those away, we're down into the 20s now.
Yeah.
So we don't have enough to ratify it. Mm-hmm. These are all violations of their constitution or the federal constitution. Either one. Either way, it nullifies the vote.
So it shouldn't have been ratified?
Right. That doesn't even get us to the next. That's just a portion of it. In order to turn these votes in, like it's just like nowadays, you can have a certified letter, right?
Yeah.
You get a certified letter, you have to show ID, and you have to autograph that you received it. It's sealed. It's legit. Signed. This is what it is. Well, it's no different back then. The process was a little different, how they got there, right? But the theory was the same. You still had to have it. It had to be, what were the 3? They had to be certified, signed, and sealed, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, well, here's 5 states that didn't do that.
Oh.
Ohio, California, Arkansas, Mississippi, Minnesota, all violated the Constitution and the ratification process by not following those 3 things. Not all 3, but some were 1 or 2 or
one wasn't
all.
sealed or some wasn't signed or whatever.
By the time they got to DC, they weren't signed. They weren't nothing. I mean, and this is again, now we're down to 5. 2 of them were included. We're down to 20 states that actually voted to ratify the amendment.
They did it properly.
That actually did it properly.
Didn't change the words. Didn't violate anything. Signed, sealed, delivered.
Right. Okay. Well, remember in the beginning, he only received 42 of the states, right? Yeah. Of the 48 that were current states.
Yeah.
Okay. Those other 6, the 2 and 2 were split. So you had 2 that were for it, 2 that were against it. And 2, this is how important the states thought this was. 2 states didn't even acknowledge the amendment. They just went on about their business. Like, you guys, whatever you're doing out there.
I'm like, which ones are the lazy ones? Or
they don't care. They're like, we're not going
to.
Yep, totally done. They just don't want to deal with it.
Yeah.
Right?
Like it was a joke to them.
Yeah,
or
basically,
whatever.
They completely ignored the federal government. They're like, no, you guys, that's your
Which
problem.
ended up not matter. Like they didn't get punished for it because what do you do if
no,
you just
no, nothing happened. But regardless of all those things, it still got passed because the government, who at the time who was in control, wanted it to happen.
Right.
So there are things that you can look into from the Knox perspective that he did that may be considered fraudulent. And there's
it's like the same now. Everything gets swung like I
mean so there's a lot of things in that whole scenario that didn't go right and they're not handled properly.
So that's why it's so controversial now,
right?
That whether it should have been passed or not, like
right.
So,
the 16th
is such a huge thing. I mean, we're not talking about 2-ply toilet paper. I don't know why that's the first thing that came to my mind.
All right, we're definitely not talking about like a
serious
a no big deal item. This is huge. It literally shapes the course of the country over the next 100 years, 200 years, whatever it is.
The party that wanted it to be ratified, was it at the time Republican or Democrat? Do you know?
The controlling party at the time was Democrat.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I was just wondering.
Yeah. Hi, Xandra. How are you?
Hi, Xandra.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for sticking around. Appreciate it. Are you bored yet?
Okay.
No? Okay.
Keep going.
All right. So then that gets us to today. All right. So 16th happened. Supreme Court cases up and down the 1900s trying to fight this thing.
Okay.
Nobody wins. Nobody's winning.
Why wouldn't it win if it's clear, if they have it in archives and they have proof of it? I mean, is it just it's so far, or probably because the government's like, it would be scary, right? I mean, like if you just didn't have taxes all of a sudden, what would the government do?
Yeah. Well, you'd have to go and look at it. You can go through and look at some of the cases that happen. And the problem is that there's not really anybody that's willing to fight it. It costs a lot of money to go through the process. It's not cheap.
Yeah, we're not fighting it.
To go through the whole process, especially got to go through the levels of Supreme Court. I mean, it's not a run of your mill civil case,
right?
This is a super expensive vendetta that you'd have to set out on to get the government. And it's not cut and dry by any means. Even with documentation, you have to prove all of it.
Yeah.
Right. You have to prove that the document's what you say it is, and then you got to go through all the, it's not a small task, to say the least. But then there's a case that I can't find anymore that I know exists, and I'm hoping that I'm going to keep this. I'm not done with this topic clearly because I love this stuff, but I'm going to find it. There is a case that was won. However, it was overturned when it got to the Supreme Court.
On taxes.
Yeah, the federal taxing is illegal. It won. It was in 19. I don't know. I don't want to say because I don't remember for sure. I know it happened. It happened once. They won, and then they got to the Supreme Court, and it got reversed. So you even if you win, you still might lose.
Right.
So it's not an easy thing. And plus, the federal government. I mean, the Supreme Courts are paid by the federal government. You really think that they're going to be like, no, take their money away? Like, come on.
Yeah.
Regardless of what side of the fence they're on, they're not going to want to take their own paychecks out of their pocket. So there's that.
Okay.
So in our current tax situation, we are one of the highest tax countries in the world. It's not even. There's
income tax wise.
Yeah, actually, in general, I mean, because we have tax on everything.
Taxes on top of taxes.
Yeah, which is another one of the legal issues you get into is double taxation
or triple.
It goes. The list goes on and on and on. Your income is taxed. Then you buy a house, that is taxed, and your property that the house sits on is now taxed. Right. And then you go to the grocery store, you buy things, it's taxed. When you sell the house, it's taxed. If you make money on it, it's taxed.
You buy a car, it's taxed.
Everything you do is taxed. So tell me anything's not double taxed, you're an idiot.
There's a lot.
Everything is double taxed. There's no two ways around that.
And other fees.
Right. And and fees and whatever. Yeah. Anyway.
Permits.
Right. However, there are several countries that operate without federal income tax. There's a few of them. There's the Bahamas, the Virgin Islands, Brunei, Cayman Islands, Morocco, Oman, the United Arab Emirates. And that's a few. There are more, but I'm also getting into the states. We have states in the United States that do not have a state income tax. Those states include Nevada, Alaska, Florida, South Dakota, Texas, Tennessee, Washington, Wyoming. Now, with that, what do they all have in common? Every single one of them. There are three things that, whether it's a country or a state, there are three things that they all have in common. What are they? Most people won't know this off the top of their head.
Well, then I'm not going to guess.
Well, if you had a bad memory, what I told you.
I ran one of them. I don't know all three of them. Yeah. Well, we're in Nevada and we have no state income tax. State income tax. And I know being in real estate that's a big reason why people move here for retirement. Same with Florida.
Yep.
So
we have,
what were the other states?
It is Nevada, Alaska, Florida, South Dakota, Texas, Tennessee, Washington, Wyoming.
Yeah. Give it to me.
Three things.
A lot of our taxes here has to do with the strip and stuff.
Tourism.
And tourism.
That's one of the three. Mm-hmm. Yep. The other one's oil and natural gas. Those are the other two.
Oh, I did know that.
Yeah, you did.
I have the worst memory.
You did.
I don't know how I even got through college.
So those are those three things.
I typed it. I literally typed it.
I know, that's why I said if you had better memory, you'd remember. So anyway, those three things exist in all of those countries or states. So if they have no federal income tax, those countries have one of those three. If they have no state income tax, those states have one of those three.
Texas, because that's what I was thinking.
Texas
doesn't have
no state income tax, but they have oil. Alaska has oil. Actually, the state government, Alaska is actually one of the most socialist states we have. The federal government subsidizes Alaska in a lot of ways. And then the oil, the state pays the citizens to live there, $20,000 a year.
They do?
Yeah.
Like all of Alaska?
Yes, the state of Alaska. Yeah, it's actually one of the most socialist states.
So why don't you live there when you retire?
As far as socialism,
I guess because it's Alaska and it's cold.
It's Alaska. Nobody wants to be there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty though.
It is pretty in the summer for like 3 months, and then you're frozen the rest.
Maybe we live there in the winter, in the summer, and we come here in the winter.
Okay, so we're gonna get back to taxes. Alaska's. I love it. I think it's beautiful. And maybe we go someday, but I have no desire to live there. None.
Okay.
They have.
I don't know. You haven't been.
They have one of the highest serial murder per capita. No.
They do.
Oh, that's why you want to go. Okay.
You have a good life.
Freaking creep. So, anyway, little side note I want to get into, which I understand. I'm going to say this up front. I understand that these two things are not 100% tied together statistically. I'm aware of that. However, it is really odd that they have a correlation that they do.
Okay.
California has one of the highest income tax in our country, right?
Taxes in general.
They're second to New York. So New York is the highest. California is second highest as far as tax rates.
Oh, you just said the opposite.
New York is highest. California is second highest.
Oh, okay.
Yep. Okay. And then we'll go to Florida because Florida has zero state income tax. Real quick, let me run through some statistics for you on the homeless population in those states. Okay, California houses 12% of the U.S. homeless population.
California is 12% homeless population.
No, well, 12% of the U.S. population. I said that wrong.
Yeah.
12% of the U.S. population. 6% is, or Florida is 6% of the U.S. population.
Okay. California, 12% of population.
U.S. total population.
6% in Florida.
Yep.
Okay. Got it.
Okay. There are 609,000 homeless people in the United States.
609,000 homeless United States. Okay.
134,000 of those homeless people live in the state of California. That's 22% of all the homeless.
It's a huge percent. Right.
In New York, 84% of the homeless population resides in New York. What did I say?
84%.
I lied. 84,000, 14%.
I was like, that's a huge percent.
No. 84,000. Yeah.
Okay.
14% in New York.
All right. So, 22% in. So I'm just going to recap because it's a lot of numbers.
It is numbers.
So
it's a lot
New York has the highest tax California's second.
Yep.
But California has the highest homeless, and New York has the second
Right.
highest homeless population.
Right.
Percentage of homeless population.
Right.
Okay.
So between the two of them, it's 36%. So 1/3 of the entire homeless populations in those two states that represent the two highest in taxes.
Okay. Yeah, that's crazy.
Right. And then by contrast, Florida has 5% of all homeless. It's 32,000.
And no income tax.
No state income tax.
No state income tax.
And again, I understand that those two things.
The weather is way better in Florida than it is in New York,
right.
I think.
Right. So you think they'd migrate down there. Like,
yeah.
But anyway, I want to make sure that I'm clear on that. Like, I understand that the tax rate and the homeless rate do not have anything to do with each other, but it is just odd.
But maybe. It's expensive to live in California and New York.
It is.
So what happens when you can't afford to pay all the taxes and mortgage and everything?
Your cost of living is a lot higher in both, and your wages are lower.
Yeah.
So that's
a lot easier to become homeless that way.
Right. 100%. But their taxes are a part of the reason. It's not the whole story.
Right. Obviously. There's a lot that goes into it.
Right. Right. And so in our current system, we have this idea that if we tax rich people more, it'll save everything. Yeah. It'll save the world, right? Tax the top 1% and as much as we can squeeze out of them. Now, should they pay more? Yes, they should. But it doesn't mean that we need to take their money to give it to somebody else.
Right.
We need to.
I don't know if I should say things.
Right. So. And that's what I'm getting to. Yes.
Please hold.
Yep, that's coming up. So
you were reading. Obviously, there was a comment that just came up.
And there's a comment that is going to tie into exactly what I'm getting to in a minute. So in our current situation, our tax rate is geared to take money from the rich and to give it to the poor.
Right.
Right. Okay. Again, I'm not opposed to helping the poor, but I am opposed to robbing the rich.
Yeah, and I'm opposed to helping the poor if they're not trying to help themselves.
Agreed.
But that's my own personal thing.
No,
I've been broke, and I did not grow up with money, so I'm not being an asshole just to be.
Right. I agree completely. But there are the system we currently are in is not working. It doesn't benefit people to become innovators. It doesn't benefit people to work harder.
Right.
Right. So if the more success I have, and maybe this only applies to certain individuals, I don't know. I'm telling you from personal experience, the more money I've made, the less I've made. Like,
right. Yeah, that happened 100% to me.
Yes.
I got taxed way more. And instead of being,
by no means are we rich. Like, we're not even close to what I would consider wealthy. Mm-mm. But we got our asses handed to us by the federal government because we did better for ourselves and our family.
I worked my ass off for a few years in sales, and I got taxed. I actually had a year that I was taxed more money than I had made 4 years before that. Right. Literally was taxed more money than the actual income I made like 4 years before that.
Right.
That was really hard to watch. So I'm working harder, trying to make more money so I can start this college fund and savings that I wasn't able to do when I was poor.
Right.
But now that I'm working extra hard and making more money, it's just being taken away from me and I'm not able to save it.
So and here's the other part of it there. So there's that side, right? So that's our personal experience on the whole thing. But then there's the other side where you have people that are making millions of dollars and have every loophole in the entire world that they don't pay taxes annually because, and then there's corporate tax, which again, it's super low. It used to account for 20% and now it counts for like 7%. I think it's down. So the corporate tax is it's not fair. The employment payroll tax, there's so many reasons to not be successful in today's world. There are, because the more you are successful, the more you pay. So it's beneficial to either be a multi-million billionaire dude or be completely broke and use their money. Those are the two things that it benefits. Yeah. If you're in the middle of our country, from just above poverty level to below wealthy, you're screwed. If you work for a living, you're screwed. That's the American way.
That's how
that's how it feels right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we don't even have the state income tax.
And we don't have state income tax. However, there is a little caveat to all of this. I did learn something with a conversation I had with somebody before I started tonight's podcast. This person lives in the state of Texas, and they actually annually pay more in taxes. But remember, Texas is no income tax.
Right.
But their property tax is higher. So they pay 3 times more in Texas in your taxes than the state that they left from, in which they would have paid about $3,400, or I think it was like $3,300 or 30. I don't remember, whatever the number was. It was a third of what they're currently paying now.
Right.
In comparison with Colorado having a state income tax. So just because your state doesn't have an income tax does not mean you're saving money.
Right.
They'll get it from you one way or another.
Yeah.
So
our car registration fees are really high here compared to it was in California. Just like little things like that, like a lot higher. I feel like.
Right. So today's situation is one of those that it's going to take a movement to change it, but there are options. There are options that we have. The one thing that needs to be clear with the federal income tax, if you abolish the federal income tax, it's more buying power. With more buying power, you have additional demand. With additional demand, you create more employment. If I have more money, I spend more money. Spending more money requires more people to produce the product that I'm buying.
Right. Okay. Right? I mean, it makes sense. Yeah.
Okay. So how do we get there? What are the ththings we can do in order for that to happen?
Yeah. So, but on the other side of that is that you have a lot of other things maybe not being paid for, like the military. If you
the military will be funded no matter what. And here's where that
we still get tariffs and stuff, right, from other countries.
Yeah, we still have tariffs. Okay, we can go back to when Donald Trump first took over.
Yeah,
he got rid of the NAFTA.
Yeah, NAFTA.
Right? Mm-hmm. Okay, well, NAFTA was eliminated. Canada stopped sending steel or stopped buying steel. I think it was sending steel. They stopped sending steel because
we started taxing them more or something.
Yeah, the tariffs went up and it caused job, blah, 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 all that. Okay, yes, but that's all tariffs. Tariffs is all part of the international exchange. That's
so he's trying to go. So he was, by doing that, he was trying to like go back to.
No, what he was trying to do was show the other people how we were getting screwed, and then he fixed it eventually, and we're way better off now.
Well, that's a whole different topic, probably.
Right. It's still not what it should be, but it's better than it was. Anyway, so then there's ways to fix it, right? Yeah. And one of my favorite ones is what Tiffany said earlier, flat tax. Mm-hmm. This is what I hope we go to. I do think it needs to be tiered. That's the one thing. So it's not really a flat tax anymore. It's a gradual tax.
A gradual flat tax?
Right. Right. Okay. So I 100% agree. We need that more of that system, and I'll run through some of what that means. Basically, no matter what your income, you get taxed the same amount. If I make $10,000 a year or I make $10 million a year, I pay X amount. Those numbers vary depending on who.
Well, like Tiffany was saying 10%.
Tiffany says 10%.
Say 10 is a number.
Yeah. And so the reference I got from the people who are pushing for this agenda is 14.5%.
Okay.
Either way, it doesn't matter. 10% is easier to do math, so we're going to run with that.
Okay.
Right? So if we do 10% of the 10,000, you have $9,000 left at the end of the year. If you made 10 million, 9 million left at the end of the year. Mm-hmm. That person clearly paid more.
Right.
Now,
but don't they pay more now? Why? So, I mean, if you have somebody making 10,000 and they're getting taxed at 30%, and then you have
they're not getting taxed at 30%.
Okay, 25%. What are they getting taxed at?
I guarantee, I would imagine if you're making
10,000. No. Okay.
I would imagine if you're paying anything,
right? Okay, so fine, 100,000, and you're getting taxed at 30%, or you have 10 million. Mm-hmm. Wouldn't you be in a higher tax bracket of like 38% anyways? Isn't that how it works? I know that I might look really dumb right now, but I thought that's how it worked.
It is a bracketed system currently.
Okay.
Yes. The problem is there is, so some of these guys are paying 50%. There is like no cap. Like there's no.
I just thought that
there's no maximum.
The rich did pay.
The rich does pay a higher a higher rate, 100%. But
so they want them to pay even more than that because they have more to spend.
Yes, that's exactly what it is.
Okay,
but that's not exactly what I'm. The flat tax, the gradual tax that I'm referring to would be more of like if let's start with a base of 10, right?
Okay,
10% at up to, let's call it 250,000. And then from 250,000 to 10 million is 12%.
Okay.
And then maxed out 100, no matter what, anything over 10 million is 14%.
Okay.
Max. Like, but it removes all of the other things. It removes your write-offs. It removes deductions. It removes loopholes. There's no fat, no bullshit.
So like no itemized.
This is your
anything?
tax. Boop, no itemized, no loophole. That's corporate and rich loopholes.
But like if you're self-employed, so it doesn't matter. You just pay
doesn't matter.
If I make 100,000 self-employed and I have 30,000 in deductions,
no deduction.
Doesn't matter. Okay, you just build in that 10% flat tax into whatever you're doing.
Right.
On top of your expenses.
Flat tax straight across the board.
It's easy.
And then the thing is, it's really funny about this, the flat tax thing. It does two things. It makes one group of people really happy and pisses off a lot of other people. But I think it's great. It would virtually abolish the IRS. The IRS would have no purpose anymore.
Right.
None. Like that's amazing. Let's get rid of them. Yay.
Well,
like what do we
there's no questions on what the tax laws are,
nope.
What this has changed and what that's changed, and with me being self-employed now. Like it's just so confusing.
Right. It would just literally, and this goes for corporate too. Corporate tax, same thing, 14.5% or whatever the numbers we choose, right? 10, 12, 14.5.
So they just want like their income for corporate?
That's it. Yep.
Like gross income?
Gross income. Yeah, 100%. Same tax rate. That works for small business, big business, doesn't matter, across the board. That eliminates payroll tax. That eliminates estate tax, gift tax, excises and tariffs. Most credits, deductions, loopholes are gone. Double taxation of your income's gone.
So can the state still?
State is not
separate.
Federal. State is not federal. They're not. Yeah, two different things. And the elimination of the IRS sounds like a win-win. Like
how much money would we save annually if we got rid of the IRS? Like just how much does it cost to like run the building and pay the people and to do 500 new laws every year? Like
I don't know.
You know what I mean? Like how much money are we spending? Yeah. We're taxed on money because people have to babysit the taxes.
100%. We need to get rid of it. It doesn't matter. And then you hear the people, oh my God, you're putting all these people out of jobs. Go get another one. You're a freaking accountant.
Yeah.
You have the IRS on your damn resume. Go find another job like the rest of us.
So angry.
And it just irritates me. Oh, the federal government's not going to have work. No one cares about the federal government and their jobs.
I do. I care about the people that have jobs.
No. Look, if you work for the federal government, you need to be ready for it to not work.
Okay, but the post office is federal government.
I care about the individual, not the federal government's job.
I get what you're saying.
The human, I care.
You're
the human, I care. I do not care. The federal government makes money for everyone they employ. They run the federal government just like a small business would. So for every employee they have, like for example, let's say I make $15 an hour at my job. My business that I work for charges 25, maybe 30.
Right.
Yes. It's the federal government does the same thing. So as we pay the federal government our money, they're paying X amount above. Right.
Yes, okay. I get that. Right. I know what you're saying.
That's the reason people.
But like people that work for the IRS, like if they were to lose their job, let's say all those people are gone, they can.
Yeah, whatever.
There's other jobs.
There's other jobs. There's plenty of jobs. It's okay. Welcome to the rest of the world. Like this is how the rest of us get by.
Yeah.
We don't have the luxury of the federal net to catch us. So anyway, there's that. Then there's the cons to the flat tax. Penalizing low-income earners. And this is why I laughed about the people. This is literally, it says abolishing the IRS is a con. I don't see that. I understand the human side of it and the jobs. I do, but I don't agree. Like getting rid of the IRS and all of their nonsense is a huge benefit to everyone in the country.
Well, but the problem too is that you could still have the IRS, but in a very minimal way, or maybe it would be a different name, right? But you would still need to know that people are filing the taxes, even with the flat tax. There's still somebody that has to like process all of this and take the money in, and
there would still be a group of people that would have to verify that, but that doesn't take.
But there's no tax refunds going out.
Nope.
God, it just seems like you'd save so much money.
You would. 100%.
Not us as people. Even as the government, like as the government not sending out all those checks or all the paperwork and all the people, like I just can't even imagine how much that would cost to run.
Yeah. Oh, and it would save millions. Maybe billions of dollars over the course of without a doubt. So then they say that it benefits the rich. I don't agree. I think that the flat tax, especially if we're to do that gradual 2.5%, I think it doesn't benefit the rich at all. Like those people still have it
eliminates some of the write-offs and stuff, so that could hurt them, even though the percentage may seem lower.
Right. I think
not
overall,
being able to go through like with the loopholes and all that.
There's no deductions. There's no itemization. There's none of that. It literally, this is what you have to pay.
Yeah.
It just eliminates all of the other nonsense.
Do other countries have flat tax?
I'd have to look.
Sorry, I
didn't look into that. I know the only thing I cared about was the ones that didn't. I'm like, they're climbing my list in case we have to exit. But no, I didn't look. I'm sure there are that have flat tax.
I'm not moving to Morocco. I'm just letting you know that now.
Yeah, no, Morocco wouldn't be my first. I don't know if they'd be my first choice. So then there's another option we have, which is the national sales tax, which this basically eliminates any form of tax on virtually all tax is gone unless you buy something. Now, this philosophy is interesting.
Okay.
So it gets rid of all the bureaucracy. It gets rid of all of the loopholes because there are none anymore, right? Whatever money you have is yours. You earned it.
So if you choose not to buy a car every 4 years.
Yep. You don't pay a tax.
You can, I guarantee our life, the way we live our life would be so different.
Yeah.
There would be no reason to buy a house because you'd be paying tax on the house.
You only pay once though.
Yeah, then you stay in that house.
You only pay
like 4 times the last 4 years.
Right. You only pay that tax once.
Right.
So it would get rolled into the real estate market. So basically, if your house is valued at $200,000, I don't know, random number in my head, $25,000 tax. Yeah. Right. Your home is now $225,000. Because of the tax, right?
I mean, I just like thinking of that. Like we would probably buy a lot less. I'd have to learn how to sew clothes.
Yeah, but like, again, it changes.
It would definitely change the impulse spending. But what does that do to the economy? Like, what does that do?
It doesn't change anything, and I'll tell you why.
Because there wouldn't be as much of a demand for things if people aren't spending money because of the taxes.
Or people have more money, so they're willing to spend a little bit more. If I have 30% more in my pocket every year, I'm probably going to spend it somewhere. Right?
Yeah, but it depends on how much you're getting taxed on this stuff you're
but
buying.
Then you also have to understand, right? And that's where the fun part of that comes in, where what the percentage rate would be. However, it proportionately affects the country. So, for example, if you're making $10,000 a year, chances are you're probably buying $10 shoes, so your tax is going to be low.
Right.
Right? So you're not paying as much into the system.
Oh, I see what you mean.
But if I'm making $10 million a year and I go and buy a condo valued at $1.7 million,
yeah.
So
the
just paid
rich
a lot.
People are going to end up paying more taxes anyways because their taste and stuff is going to be unless they choose to drive.
If they're cheap rich people.
Yeah, that's what I would want to be.
Or poor people who live beyond their means. It's a balance. You choose where your money goes, literally where it goes. But it gets put into the national sales tax money and sent to the federal government. Nothing changes in that aspect.
And then when tourists come and visit and stuff, they have to pay the national
same tax.
The federal.
Yep.
Which would be really high. Yeah, that's crazy.
It doesn't have to be high.
When you first said it, I was like, nope. But I mean, I see what you're saying.
Right.
I think that gives you a little bit more control too over things, because we really could choose to not spend as much in a lot of ways.
You could. Yeah, you could choose. You literally get to pick where your money is spent. And
I would not get another new car for like,
you'd run it down.
Yeah.
Yep. Which is what you're supposed to do anyway. Buying a car every 2 years is a terrible idea. And leasing's even worse. But I
don't buy a car every 2 years.
So let's give you some pros on it, right? It creates an equality system. You control how much taxation affects yourself. It eliminates bureaucracy.
Mm-hmm.
It lowers business taxes for small business. It can create more money even though people are spending less in taxes. So basically, you have more money in your pocket, which is more money to put out in the system. Again, abolish means more jobs.
But what about the state side of it?
Mm-hmm.
So would the state add a sales tax on top of it?
Nothing changes. Nothing changes on the state side.
So property tax and things like that would still be in place.
Yep. Nothing changes on the state side. This is all on a federal level.
I know, but that's what I'm saying. Like the state sales tax, does that get added to? So like if let's say the government, the national sales tax is 20%, mm-hmm. the state could tack on another 3% for state stuff?
Not with property tax. Property tax.
No, I'm just mean sales tax. Like I go to buy a car.
Yeah, so whatever the number they come up with, it's not 30%.
Oh, I know.
It would be like 3%
for the state.
Federal.
Oh, federal. Oh. Yeah, we pay more than that to the state for sales tax.
I know. But you figure 3% of everything eventually over time is going to add up to a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
So
okay.
And look, it could change. I threw a number out there, but it's not going to be 30%. It's not going to be 10%.
Well, I was thinking, if it's 8, what was it out here? 8.5%?
It's
sales tax, something like that. I thought you were saying like it'd be like 15% or something like
total
high for the federal side of the sales tax.
Total would be 15% now. That might be your new benchmark, 15% sales tax, including federal and state.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I really don't know. I mean, because those numbers are all over the board.
Because if you're not getting taxed on the other side of it, having 15% on sales tax, that doesn't sound that bad versus 30%.
And think about it. You have no federal income.
Right.
So there's no federal income tax.
That you normally get, say 30%, taxed at 30%.
So
right?
and you go and choose where you want. You literally choose whether you want to pay taxes or not.
Yeah.
Or you keep what you earned. I'm not opposed to it. I think there's something there. So then there's a cons list to that side, right? There's without subsidies and refunds in place, it would be become a regressive tax structure. Every con, just to give you guys an idea, when I went through some of these ideas, every con list or con idea is regressive because that's what they need it to be, regressive in order for it to not work. Right? If it's regressive, that means it's going to hinder people from advancing in life. So every tax plan has a regressive concept to it. If you're trying to argue against it, it's bad. Can't go backwards. That's a regressive tax plan. They love that line.
I feel like there's so many government programs that are funded too that are just, couldn't even tell you how many. That if you were to do that sales tax one, how many of those other programs would be eliminated? Right. Like maybe we could get rid of some of the fluff.
Right.
Because there's totally different.
So then it would increase price of goods and services. It wouldn't. That's the price doesn't change.
On it.
It's just the tax. Yeah. This tax goes up, but you have more money in your pocket. It would cause a mortgage crisis. No, it wouldn't. Nothing changes. You have more money. There's nothing. It would create a system of double taxation. No, it wouldn't. And we are already there. So
how would it create double taxation? Well, I guess in the idea of the state and the federal. But we already have.
No, what they're saying is that because every service has a fee, right?
And then you pay.
And then you pay, right? So. Yeah. But not
it's like that now.
Right. It's already there. So it doesn't make any sense that that's even something they bring up. And then they talk about how any tax you have, it gets increased because it's run by the federal government. That's every tax program. That doesn't just apply to the sales tax program. That's every program. If the federal government is involved, they will find a way to make more money out of it.
Right.
So it doesn't matter. Now, that's two of them. The third one I had never heard of, but it's something that Europe uses that I think is actually it's actually a really good idea. It's called a value added tax. And I am by no means an expert on what this is, but I can give you an idea to try to help you guys understand. Let's say I want to build a cement pad. Okay. Well, in order for the cement to get delivered to me, it has to be mixed. So that person can charge an added fee for what they paid for the cement, the sand, and the rock. The person who has the sand can increase the fee or the value, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because they sold it in order to create a product that they received from the land.
Right.
So then the land gets sold at a lower cost. So it starts with the land to the dirt, to the mixer, to the cement pad, right? And at every level, you increase the cement or the value of it, you increase the value of the tax.
Okay.
Right. So whatever stage you're in that process depends on what you pay. So for example,
okay,
car, right? Car has materials. The materials are nothing. They're just a thing, but they get sold to the manufacturer. Manufacturer puts this car together, right?
Mm-hmm.
That increased the value of those materials.
Because it's more usable now.
Right.
Okay.
So by the time it gets to us, it's now at a higher tax level because it's worth more. So now I buy the car, right? At that tax level. So
going like clothing. So if I buy the fabric, it's going to have a lower cost, like a lower tax on it than if I'm buying a dress that's already made.
Yep. Right. So, but it works in all aspects of your life. For example, milk, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you pay less for the farmers pay less, right? And then by the time they milk the cow and put it in a jug.
What is it?
I was trying to milk a cow. But I was trying not to punch the mic at the same time, and I was trying to milk.
Okay.
Milk the cow.
So once you get the cow, you milk it.
Yeah.
Have a better, more value.
And then as you moves down,
bottle,
right. And from the bottle to delivery to the store to the customer.
Okay.
Yep. And every time it's an incremental fee.
So if I drive to the dairy and pick it up directly, it should
cost
be
you less.
Yeah.
Yep.
Than if it's delivered to the grocery store or delivered to my house.
Right. So there's a few things that can happen in this instance and in the sales tax instance. For example, vegetables.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to pay more for them at the store. I'm going to grow my own to save money. So now I create a garden.
A little more self-sufficient.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So now I've put a garden in my backyard. I can grow my own groceries. I can do all that.
Less tax on seeds.
Less tax on everything.
Okay.
Because I chose to do it myself. Right. Just like making your address.
So basically being taxed for the ease of things.
Yep. And that's
I can't build a car though. So I mean, that's
I can't either. Right. So the added value has some pros and cons. The value added is based on consumption and thus provide a stable revenue base. Let's see, it'd be neutral since it would be imposed on all types of businesses, provide stronger incentives for business to control costs, encourage or at least not discourage savings, have potential for raising large amounts of revenues at a low tax rate, to be simple to administer, reduce obstacles to export under certain conditions, and it helps bring about better balanced tax system because it's literally just passed on. Like it's not geared towards any group. It's not geared away from any group. It literally just is. Right.
Yeah. I wonder, I mean, not everybody would be able to grow a garden and things like that. So, I mean, I wonder who that benefits more.
But there's some things that people can do and some things that people can't do. That doesn't, but your tax system has nothing to do with it. That's you chose to live in a 17-story apartment complex.
How I grew up in an apartment with my dad. Like I don't know how we would have had a garden. We
can get into that. Let me give you a little idea. If you guys have a wall and you have 4 of them underneath your roof, you could build a garden indoors. So
Oh, that's true.
If we do go to this system, you can grow your own crops indoors on a wall. There's a way to do it.
Yeah, but those systems are expensive.
They're not expensive.
The ponics.
But you're talking about a specific one that's already built. You can build your own for like $300-$400. Anyway.
That's expensive to some people.
Okay. I'll help you out. Okay. So then we'll go back to the to the cons.
Don't just offer our money.
What? I didn't offer money. I offered tips and advice. I can help you out. So then again, we go back to the cons list, and guess what? It's a regressive tax system, right? Because that's what they love that. They love using that. It can lead to excessive spending. Explain to me how the more I get taxed, the more I'm going to spend. Again, it's the same concept as a national sales tax.
Spending?
Yeah. Like,
what's excessive spending? I mean, unless
we live in America.
I know.
We do that normally.
Living outside your means.
Yeah.
But how does that? Okay, go ahead.
Can be harmful to new and marginal business activities, create administrative complexities, which it can't. If you literally have let's say a 1% tax every stage, what's complicated?
But setting up the stages, I think, could be complicated on what is considered.
Most of the manufacturing things and things that are going to actually be impacted by it they're already streamlined and the process is in place.
Well, and they already do that, right?
Right.
I mean, yeah.
Set off inflationary tendencies. Again, don't believe it. It could be considered a hidden tax. If you pay attention, everything's a hidden tax. There's nothing that's not taxed. So what's hidden? I don't understand.
Well, would it be? I mean, it'd be like tier 1 tax, tier 2 tax, tier 3. Like you would have these different stages of tax.
Stages of tax.
So by the time you get to the car, maybe you're at a stage 4, tier 4 tax. Like how would that be hidden?
Yeah, it's not hidden.
Just be tier 4 tax.
It's just there. But this is why I don't understand some of these arguments because it doesn't.
Yeah, I don't like that one either.
Yeah. And then be able to, on many instances, create meaningful incentives for exports. Exports and imports they're only going to be affected. Those things are not affected by your taxes. Like here in America. So we created incentives for the companies to come here, like to stay here. Like Ford started building in Mexico City. They abandoned it, came back because they gave them tax breaks. Right. But they're still going to have people buying and selling.
Well, what about the idea like going to the car? Like if we had that system and we wanted to buy a car, but it's a tier 4 tax on it, which is really high because it's done. Or we could take a 10-hour drive to Mexico and pick up a car down there that has a much lower tax.
You can do that now with your teeth. You can go down there.
I know that, but I'm just saying that could affect the American economy in that sense. How many people are going to go and do that?
It already does.
I know.
I mean, the pharmaceutical companies right now, they've outpriced themselves in our market. So we go down to Mexico to buy them anyway. So it's no different.
We don't,
but Americans do.
Right. Or Canada.
Canada's more expensive.
Oh,
I doubt you're going to find anything cheaper in Canada.
I have no idea. I don't buy drugs anywhere.
I doubt you're going to find anything cheaper in Canada than you'd find here.
In the medical stuff. Or just in general. I didn't think when we went to Toronto, it wasn't. I don't remember it being that expensive.
Yeah, 6-pack of beer, American dollars was like.
I don't remember it being like ridiculously more expensive.
I think I'm pretty sure it was.
I don't know. All the money just looked really pretty and colorful.
Yeah. You thought we were playing with a Monopoly game.
It was totally different money.
Yeah. So, anyways, those are a handful of ideas for that. I mean, as far as fixing the problem, which we clearly have. The problem is I don't know that we have the right people to make the change. The Ross Perot's are not. Rand Paul. He's our next best bet, I think. To complete, I think he stands up against
one thing versus the whole.
Yeah, but it's one of those things that federal taxes are necessary evil, right? Like I understand that I don't like them.
Yeah, but there's a lot of bullshit spending too.
But there's we could trim a lot of fat in the federal government.
Yeah,
100%.
Yeah,
and we just got to figure out how to do that. Right. But that's a whole different topic.
I like the idea of simplifying it more.
But we need to simplify it, right? And just get rid of all the nonsense because that's a lot of the ways how money laundering is occurring. That's a lot of the ways how fraud is occurring. That's a lot of the ways how they're getting some of this, like these stimulus packages that are being shuffled and some dirty money that get moved. And there's a lot of that, and that's a lot because of all these loopholes and different things that they have in their little tax codes and regulations that they can go around.
Yeah.
And if you get rid of all that, you might clean up some of the industry stuff, but they don't want that, right? Because that's a whole nother topic of conversation. But it's still the concept is that if we got rid of some of those things, they probably wouldn't be able to conduct business the way they currently are.
Yeah.
Which is a lot of the reason why I think they want to keep it.
Just needs to be a little bit more black and white.
100%.
Yeah.
And so anyway, that's part of the reason why the 16th Amendment is so fascinating to me, because it has literally changed history, and it will forever change history as long as it exists. And it
feels like we just get deeper and deeper and deeper into more and more and more taxes too.
Right. Which is something that's happened for years. That's not new. I mean,
that was a little bit of like the New Deal and things like that, which changed it a lot.
Right. But we've operated in debt. And the numbers are, by comparison, completely different because it happened back during the Civil War. But we were $5 million in debt, which is equal to, like, I want to say it was like 80 billion or 8 billion, or I don't remember exact number conversion, right? I don't exactly know, but we were operating in debt before the Civil War started. And it's continued. Clearly now we're in the trillions of dollars in debt. And by today's standards, that is trillions of dollars in debt.
Yeah.
That's a lot. That's only going to go on to our kids. But I mean, anyway, it's there's a lot to it, and this is not a simple thing that you can just get through in an hour. There's so much on it and how it affects every aspect of your life. You can spend.
I like the idea of the flat tax. It just seems really simple.
It is. I think it's the best system that we have.
I mean, the other ones are interesting too, but I think that just the idea of not even like really dealing with the refunds or the itemizing, and just it's just like almost, instead of it being a tax, it's almost a fee. Like it's just a fee you pay.
That's it. It's done. Yeah. I agree. I definitely would lean towards the flat tax, like on a gradual basis. I don't think having a flat 10% is, I don't want to say fair, because that's the stupidest word in the English language. Like nothing's fair, like whatever. But I think it's the most reasonable.
Yeah,
for sure.
And I think that I mean, using the fair word, I think it's the most fair across low, middle, and higher income groups.
Right.
So.
Right. Yeah. So anyways, I hope I didn't put everyone to sleep.
I learned stuff.
I love this. This is the kind of stuff that I get into on my own free time. Just to be able to share with you guys. It's kind of fun.
I will never Google this ever.
You don't have to now. You can just watch the video again.
But I like learning. I like hearing it from you. But you tell me this stuff all the time.
I do. She just doesn't listen all the time. This is part of the reason why I enjoy doing the podcast. That's the only time I get her to listen to me.
You force me to sit down.
It's
I know why you're doing it 3 times a week too.
Yeah. That's right.
Just kidding. I
love it. So anyways, we are going to be back on Friday.
Yep.
At 6:00, and we're doing
the prison stuff. Talking about prison. I don't remember.
See, and this is why.
Tell me what we're doing.
So we're gonna go over wrongly convicted criminals who are either on death row or are serving life sentences that were either wrongly convicted or misidentified, and then later found out to have been,
because of the DNA and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You're welcome. I'm also her memory as well.
Yes.
So there's that. That's
and
fun.
Then we're going to be putting up a Survey Monkey on Smack Dub's website, and then we'll probably send it out on our own individually. Yeah. But and it's just COVID questions.
It's just for fun.
It's kind of there's 10 questions. It's just kind of like the then and now, before and after, like what's changed, what hasn't, just to kind of get a pulse on where kind of everyone's at. And because everyone's in different parts of the country, it's a little bit different. Some people are more locked down than others. Some are like voluntarily locked down. Some aren't given 2 shits about it. So,
and I think we created it where it's anonymous, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
your name won't pop up. So when you answer the question,
maybe I should add that to it so people know.
Yeah. Your name won't pop up. So feel free to be as funny as you like, or as serious,
honest. Yeah.
As honest as you can be. Cause your name won't appear.
But I mean, there's nothing on there it's like, are you exercising more or not?
It doesn't matter. What if exercising creates some sort of like distress for somebody and they don't want to talk about it?
Don't do the survey then. It's not that serious.
All right, fine. All right. Well,
if exercise topics trigger you on something,
treadmills are scary as hell.
I don't exercise. I mean, and I would just be like, same, not exercising.
Right. right.
That would be it. So, but yeah, keep an eye out for that, and we'll go over the results when we get them in. Probably on Monday, I would say. Give it the weekend.
Right. Yeah. So we'll get that survey sent out, and hopefully we get some back from you guys. And thanks for joining us, and we will see you Friday.
Have a good night.
Bye, guys.